issue with the final strike call?
Well, yes, because it wasn't a strike. I mean, I do. It was the wrong call. All right, but you guys know me. I'm not one to advocate, players and coaches and stuff complaining about calls. We see this happen a lot in baseball. I'm glad this year we know in MLB they're going to have the automated strike zone, the challenge system and all that. I've been calling for the automated strike zone for years so that we have a standard strike zone.
A lot of people say he was the first to call.
First one.
I was among them. But they obviously didn't have it in the World, Baseball Classic, so maybe next time. So I do hate that. That said, look, and Perdomo, that was a great at-bat up until he struck out. I mean, he fouled off two 100-plus mile-an-hour fastballs. When he had 2 strikes, it was a 7-pitch at-bat. So I'm not going to kill him, but A-Rod kind of referred to it. It's too close for you to take. That's close enough to the strike zone where I think you need to take a chop at it. And so he didn't. So I'm not, look, I love what Pujols said. He didn't make a big deal out of it, but it was the wrong call.
It was the wrong call. And it's also true the Dominican Republic was probably the most talented team in the tournament. And probably if that game last night is played out 100 times, I don't know that Team USA wins 51 of them, because it felt like the Dominican Republic should have scored way more than 1 run last night, which is why I don't feel bad's the wrong word, but they have themselves to blame for the loss. The 3rd inning, Tatis gets thrown out at 3rd. Now, that's an amazing throw by Judge, but still,
he should have stayed at 2nd.
It's a base running. You try not to make the 1st or 3rd out at 3rd is, kind of an old baseball thing.
Soto was on deck
First inning,
one of them.
They had 1st and 2nd, 1 out. Or the 4th inning, pardon me. 1st and 2nd, 1 out. They got 0 runs. 5th inning, 1st and 2nd, 1 out. They got 0 runs. 7th inning, 1st and 3rd, 1 out. 1st and 3rd with 1 out in the 7th inning of a 1-run game. You get no runs, including 2nd and 3rd with 2 outs. Didn't get a base hit. And then in the 9th, prior to that, they have a man on 2nd with 1 out, and they can't get him home. You have plenty of opportunities to win, and then it does come down to, that's a bad call. But it's also unfair to say if he walks that all of a sudden they're going. Now, they obviously could have won. They could have, they could have tied. Don't know. But it's a bad call. It's also not the reason they lost, and they also had plenty of opportunities to win.
Okay, I was going to skip this. I skipped all the baseball segments over these week. I skipped all the other extra stuff, NASCAR, whatever they're doing, because it's just, this is a football. This has become a football channel. It says JWL Sports, but I just decided to say this is a football channel. But since this is so controversial, I really wanted to cover it, and I want to cover it here because in football we talk about officiating and refereeing, and is this a flag? It's not a flag. Pass interference, not a pass interference. And listening to people talk about baseball who just don't really know baseball is, I'll just say it's pretty funny. Got a lot of interesting opinions here. I want to take this in so many different directions. Listen, it wasn't a bad call. It wasn't a strike according to the strike zone, but it wasn't a bad call. That's what people are getting really confused. Okay, that's what people are getting really confused. You have to understand with umpiring, it is such a more complicated beast calling balls and strikes than other officiating. Was this a foul? Was this on the floor or not? It's just especially when you're talking about balls and strikes for breaking pitches, sliders, curves, etc. It can be so misleading in terms of where the ball ends up in the glove, where it's crossing the plate, how much movement there is, what has been the strike zone, going into a game. What you often say is, and coaches teach this to you, from the moment you are actually playing with real pitchers and because when you're younger, you have coach pitch and stuff like that. When you actually have like real balls and strikes, strike zones are always going to fluctuate. And what you want as a player is you just want it consistent. You want it consistent for everyone. You don't want that pitch sometimes to be called a ball, sometimes to be called a strike. And I am in favor of being able to review balls and strikes and whatnot. I think it's important the way how sports has evolved right now, and I get it, but to look at this singular pitch as it was the wrong college back, the way how the game unfolded, the way how the balls and strikes were already being called, it was quite consistent. Not to mention, you then have to unpack, because this is where it's different from other calls in terms of like, well, was that a pass interference call back in the first quarter and now the third, right? Like, it's not like in baseball, you're talking about hundreds of pitches being thrown in a game on both sides. So like you're having, so you have to now look at every single ball and strike through such a zoomed-in narrow lens. Now in these types of moments, that's when everything is the most magnified. And I get it. If this happened to Team USA, you would be so upset and so angry. But that ball and the whole idea of that it's too close to take, and that is the other thing, right? When it's going to be a strike three, when it's too close and it's an important part of the game, right, they'll say like that's too close to take. Even if it was a ball, you got to swing because of the ability for an ump to call that a ball or a strike. And so it's very situational, which then again makes it different than basketball and football, because largely a pass interference call is a pass interference call whether it's in the first quarter, the third quarter, whether there's 3 minutes left in the half, or whatever it may be. A call is a call. A foul is a foul. In baseball again, there's just so much more nuance to it. There's a lot more nuance, and they're trying to take that out of the game, and I fully support that. I fully support that. But the problem is a lot of people who just don't understand baseball and how games unfold and how it's been played for literally ever. People see this call as an equivalent of what was it? Saints and the Rams, I think it was, whichever one, when they decided to say, hey, we got to start having we have to start to throw. We have to be able to review pass interference calls. And it's like that was so awful. Like that was like, oh my gosh, balls and strikes. And especially that ball and strike, that pitch is so much closer than you might think of when you see that little box and you're like, oh my god, that was clearly a ball. It's just not the movement on the pitch. I mean, the movement of it. You see, it's a strike, and then it falls off a table. If it falls off a table in a way that it becomes so difficult to actually really understand, that's why it's so hard to hit. That's why it's the hardest thing to do in all sports is to hit a baseball. I mean, it was an 89 miles per hour slider that literally just falls off a table. I mean, let's really zoom in on this. I mean, look at that right there. It's appearing to essentially be dead center of the strike zone. Dead center in the strike zone. In fact, if it stays there, that's the worst pitch you could ever throw, cause it's literally right down the middle of the plate. Yeah, you don't want to do, especially at 89 miles per hour. That's like that ball is still in the air and it'll be hard to really get it perfectly, but you can see it's just starting to break. And you can see Perdomo, like the batter, he's already starting to be like, I'm about to swing. He's seeing it break. And you see that where you're like, well, look how low it is. And then also the framing. Now it's a more of a framing is when the catcher gets the ball and then puts it in the strike zone. If it's a little wide goes like that when you have this all together it'll feel like this was a bad call when in reality it was actually an unbelievable pitch. It was an unbelievable take by Perdomo. Probably not the right take, but because of that's just the way how baseball's played, and that's what A-Rod said, where it's like it's too close to take, which is true. But this will be an instance when baseball does evolve, because you do want to see a batter with a great eye and a great take be able to benefit from that. You do want to see that. So like again, I'm all in favor of changing this. And if this was Bryce Harper or Judge or something, I would understand why everybody is so upset and so angry, and you're like, oh my god, Team USA got robbed. Like, I get it. But it's just so embedded in baseball, especially with balls and strikes. It's so embedded in the art and science of a strike zone, because you also have to understand and I never understood this. I played baseball. I played semi-pro like I pitched like I to this day. For the life of me, even when I've heard it explained, it still is weird, because again, when you're younger, when you're like, I guess probably when you're like 8, 9, I forget the age when they finally stop this, but in the beginning, especially when it's actually because especially when you're younger, when you're like 6, 7, 8, when you're finally actually playing like with real pitchers, you'll have like coaches. You won't have real umps, you'll have like coaches, call balls and strikes, and they stand behind the pitcher, and you think like, well, that makes sense, right? When you're watching the games growing up at home, you're like, well, that makes sense. You can see it. But then the catcher, then the actual have the umpires obviously behind the catcher. And it's because then you'll be able to see the break and you see where it crosses the plate, etc., etc. You're getting a fundamentally different view when you're sitting here. The pitcher is getting a different view. Like, everyone's getting a different view than the umpire himself. But you have to understand that box like it's you're as a human being, you're gauging it every time. You're eyeballing it every time. This isn't as clear as, well, when I was shooting, you smacked my arm. You could hear the arm smack. You feel it. You see it. You can see my arm is all red now. He clearly fouled me, right? You see it. It's as clear as day. Pass interference. He grabbed my jersey. Like it's sure there's always going to be some interpretation for it to a degree, but like this is like the ultimate eyeballing. It's the ultimate, and it changes also seemingly depending on the size of a batter. And again, like when you're playing, it's like you have a sense of what the strike zone is. You kind of have a feeling of if it's too outside, if it's too inside, it's about like my chest down to around my knees maybe. And then you know too that if a strike that's like maybe a little bit below your knees, it's called a strike, and you're just like, that was clearly a ball in baseball. You now know, well, that is a strike. And again, what's frustrating is that if you get the same pitch and then it's called a ball, and again especially because since I pitched, it would be frustrating if you felt that you didn't get the call that you got, like they called a ball when I'm batting but then I got it called a strike, or vice versa. It was called a strike when I'm batting, but then it was called a ball when I'm pitching. You're just like, bro, I just need a consistent strike zone. I need to just know what the strike zone is when I'm throwing or batting for that matter. And so, again, it's so much more art and science kind of combined together. And that level of just, I'm at a loss for some of the words, but it's just that looseness of it to baseball is being lost on a lot of people that have just not really watched baseball, who just don't really understand what it is. And again, it's a bummer that these things happen. And pitchers are always going to have different feelings than batters will have, it without a doubt. But it's so much harder. This is just not. So that's why when Bruce is like, it was just the wrong call, and it's just like it was and it wasn't. Like that's what I'm probably trying to emphasize more than anything. It was and it wasn't. This is not equivalent to missing a blatant pass interference call. It's not equivalent to Steph Curry going up for a shot and clearly getting hacked and it just wasn't called. It's not the same. And everyone and a lot of people are treating it as such. And that's what I get. I'm getting irked by the conversation, because it's just like that pitch was a dirty pitch and a positive dirty pitch again. It fell off the table. A pitch like that with that type of movement coming in at 89 miles per hour 32 count. Oh my gosh, that pitch is so dirty. Quite frankly, he should have swung and missed at it, laughter, And so it was a great take but also a bad take. It was a perfect pitch but also a tough pitch. That's just baseball. And it is a frustrating aspect of baseball. It's absolutely a frustrating aspect of baseball. And I wish there was more of an equivalent to it to a degree to kind of keep it with the football comparison, like with the pass interference. It's not a blatant pass interference, but it's like hand fighting, right, where you're just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. And, you'll hear a commentator be like, I am glad that they let them play here. And then you'll hear like the TV ref kind of just be like, well, I think there was enough contact there that they could have called it pass interference. Then the play-by-play is like, well, why not offensive pass interference, And it's like, oh, well, that's why you just let them play, whatever any of their nonsense banter. Not nonsense. I like their banter. I appreciate the banter, but so it's a tough one. It's a tough one. But I think anyone who's being honest, 'cause I actually saw a baseball player, I don't know his name, but I saw that he actually played pros. I saw it in the comments section and I was about to be like, bro, you never played baseball a day in your life. And then I saw that he did play baseball. I'm like, what? You actually were in the league, and like you're saying, because he was like the should talk to the press afterwards and explain themselves. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you know better than that. Like, are you just trying to build a social media following right now? Like, what's your MO with this? Because you know better. You know better. And again, if you're on the field and you're playing, you're going to get mad. You're going to get upset. You're going to yell at you're going to yell at blue. You're going to be like, what the heck? That was a bad call. Like, you're going to have that. And that is just so embedded in baseball. Like I said, they're trying to remove it, but you just can't look at the umpire and say, he made a bad call. He was wrong. He was a bad up. He made a glaring mistake. That was not the case. That was not the case. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully this actually can be an interesting conversation. I know a lot of people watching this, or subscribers on this channel, probably not the biggest baseball fans out there, but the fact of how this all unfolded is what I find the conversation most interesting, and in hearing people who like I said just don't know a lot about baseball, and balls and strikes and pitching and what it's like to be at bat, at bat 3-2 count, 2 outs, not bottom of the ninth. Like I don't know. So I was going to skip this, and then I heard as soon I heard Bruce take, and I immediately paused and was like, okay, I got to do a legit reaction here to this one, because I'm just like, okay, we got to talk about this. So, but those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the controversy? How this game ended? What do you make of it? How do you make sense of it? You as football fans, and sports fans in general, did you watch this game? Are you watching baseball? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get some discussions. Let's get some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much.